Well, hello there. It's another day. I'm Jim Harrington.
And I am Bill Knight. Happy Monday. Did you survive the protesting going on this weekend?
Yeah, a lot of them. You know, the media made it sound like we were under siege, and we weren't, folks. Trust me. They said, oh, there was 10,000 in this city, and there was 15,000 in this city, and there were thousands. They don't even give you a figure sometimes. There were thousands, making it sound like a sea of people. But some people, like in Pittsburgh, there was a guy this morning, I heard him say in one of the talk shows, I went through the area, and there was nowhere near the number of people that they told you there were. You know, the media.
I saw pictures of that. I saw lots and lots and lots. Did I see lots of cop cars? And I saw a couple of people strung around in the background. I'm going, ooh, what a protest. Now, you know, imagine if there had been a real damn emergency.
Oh, yeah.
And they were there, they were doing crowd control for those 6 or 7 people. You know, I mean, there were more than 6 or 7, but there weren't thousands, you know, a multitude of thousands.
Well, you know, the guy in Pittsburgh this morning said, hey, listen, I watched one of the news programs, and they were showing footage from the Three Rivers Regatta, which is a big festival they have in Pittsburgh. He said, so some of the footage wasn't even legitimate. You know, that they were mixing it in with the stuff that they had to make it look like there were more people.
Oh, I saw something like that over the weekend where somebody sat there and they posted this thing where the streets were packed and the side streets were packed. This was a mob. This was a bigger city within a city. I think it was Minneapolis or something like that. Turned out somebody goes, no. Here's that photo right here. It's an old photo of something else. You know, and, you know, I'm sorry, but you people on the left are stupid. If you don't have anybody there, own it, because faking this stuff is stupid on your part.
The media is complicit. The media will, you know, knowingly and gleefully says that there were more people than there were actually at the event. Now, I'm not saying there wasn't a crowd there. There was a crowd at a lot of these events. But here's the thing, Bill. From what I've been able to determine is a lot of them were paid. A lot of them were bussed in. A lot of them had been given a voucher, $200 a day in food, to be at certain events. A lot of these people were the same people who were at the events in 2020. The same people. It's like their job. And you have to ask yourself, is this a legitimate demonstration? Don't get me wrong. What they do is they will pay for a core group of people to go into an event, a core group to start it, and then stragglers and, you know, curiosity seekers and anarchists and students and the stuff. Well, they'll join them, so there'll be people who they're not paying who will be at the event, but the seed is usually a group of people who are paid to be there. You know, and Bill, I'm concerned about this because I do think that there's a concerted effort on the part of some very evil people to bring down this administration. When I hear people say Elon Musk is trying to make money off the backs of the working people, I'm sorry, folks. This guy, I don't understand how this gets any traction because the guy is worth more than most states. He doesn't need the money. He doesn't need the money. If all of his businesses failed today, he'd still be a rich man.
Mm-hmm.
But, Bill, they talk about it. I hear these bloody politicians saying, Elon Musk is trying to make money off the backs of the working men. Come on.
You know, they talk about the oligarchy. You know, we're against all these rich people, and then I see people that are rich doing it. Even Neil Young's out there doing it. I'm going, well, Neil, you're worth several $100 million. You know, you may not be a billionaire, but you don't need the damn money.
Yeah.
So what are you talking about? You're a rich bastard. You got Bernie Sanders out there now. Supposedly, he's only worth about $70,000 in paper. But how do you explain all of his mansions? You know, so he's hiding the money.
Yeah.
You got Joan Baez. She's about the only one that was worth a lot of money that somehow blew it all. You know, and then you got AOC. Now, that's an interesting one. AOC, because she was a waitress. You
No,
know,
actually, she was born in Westchester County, brought up in Westchester County, one of the
okay,
richest places in New York.
yeah, but so she's a phony because she's worth over $70 million now in just a couple of years. I'm like going, and she's talking about the rich people. Come on, let's be real now. AOC, you're a liar, you're a faker, and you're a cheater. And
Before the show started, we were talking about you believed, and I happen to agree with you, but you were on a roll. I only wish that I was rolling tape. Uh,
well, you cut me off.
well, I didn't want you to waste it. We were talking about the real villains behind this movement. It's not the grassroots. It's not the students. Look at, to a certain extent, folks, students do this kind of stuff. They're stretching their legs. They're flapping their wings for the first time. They think they got the world figured out when they're 20 years old. They actually think they got it all down pat, and they haven't got a clue. They haven't even bought their first house or their first real car, a lot of them. And all of a sudden they're going to tell you how you should be running the government and the world. How many guys, Mark Twain once said, I'll just say this, Mark Twain once said, it's amazing how stupid my father was when I was 18 and how much smarter he had become when I was 21. The fact of the matter is the father didn't change. The kid did.
Yeah, he opened his eyes.
Yes.
Look, rich people have been around a long time, and there's always been a saying that there's been about 10 or 20% of the people, or 10 or 20% own everything and control everything, the rich people of the world. And do you think that they're going to give away their high on a pedestal position
Absolutely
to
not.
us?
Nope.
So you sit there and you look at tariffs and everything. They have been around for a long time now. The oligarchs of the world, yeah, Elon could be one, Trump could be one, but they're not. They don't need that. They don't want that. There are people that, there might even be people that have more money than them, and we just don't know it. But they're up there in these quiet rooms, making all these decisions, pulling all these strings. You look at tariffs here that go on. These tariffs have been going on for years. I'm under the impression that, we have been at war. There's a war of tariffs right now that Trump is waging. They call it the G war, where the tariffs are his last fight against them. But, I'm sitting there thinking about it, and I go back, we talk about World War II. We won that war, and we won our right for freedom and everything. But, these other countries in the world, the one way that they could fight us is with tariffs. And they've been doing that against us a long time. Even Japan, where we sit there and go, well, they really don't have a tariff. Okay, they may not have a tariff, but they have rules, these rules that we're not talking about, that block us from selling our materials there. It has never been a fair playing field.
Well,
What's happened?
let me tell you how rich we are, okay? You talked about World War II, right? Of course, there was massive destruction in Europe as a result. When that war ended, there were entire cities that were leveled, okay? Dresden and Berlin, places like that were leveled because of the combat. Now, a lot of countries would have said, you're on your own, you fix your own countries. Not the United States. Even in Japan, we helped them all get back on their feet. We gave them resources to get back up. A lot of countries just would never have done that. And so when I hear these people talking about how bad we are as a nation, how evil, how corrupt, it makes me sick. And now I hear the EU talking to us, lecturing us on what we have to do with the tariffs, when for years they have been screwing us with tariffs. For years, don't kid yourself. If you think, Trump is such a bad guy, he's issuing all these tariffs on Europe, we're still not level with most of them. They still have higher tariffs in a lot of countries on a lot of things.
Everything that we have or want, we can make in this country, and we once did. Now, I'm not saying they shouldn't make things in other countries. Just make stuff that we want or make it in a way that we want it, just like we make things a certain way. But we go through a store right now, and start walking around, and you're going to find, like, you look at shirts, Taiwan, Jordan, Indonesia, Sri Lanka, all these different places that are making these clothes, and they're not as good material as what we can do, but nothing comes from America. Well, I can't say nothing, but I would say a good 90 to 98% of what we have, we don't make. Oh, well, what about the cars? The parts come from somewhere else now. It doesn't matter. We no longer manufacture, which means we don't own. We're a nation of debtors and buyers, and at some point in time,
The
once our money's gone, it's gone. It's gone somewhere else.
the big news over the end of the week was Vietnam.
Hmm.
Vietnam came out and said, "Look, we'll have zero tariffs if you have zero tariffs." And everybody went, "Oh, look at see, Vietnam's going to give us zero tariffs." But let me explain something to you, folks. A lot of the items that say Vietnam on the label are actually made in China.
That's
China
right.
China ships the stuff to Vietnam. They switch the labels, and then they beat the tariff by sending them from Vietnam to here.
Hmm.
They're not stupid, folks. And by the way, they're not the only country that they do that with. So, but we were talking before, Bill, about this group of globalists who really control these movements
Hmm.
that protested over the past weekend, and
Yeah.
it's all intentional. They want this anarchy. They want this revolution to take a footing. We talked about it's not a secret, and I don't understand why there aren't consequences for this man. But the word widely said out there is that Soros is behind the funding of all of these protests. Now, maybe that's not illegal. Maybe funding a protest is technically and legally not illegal. So maybe that's the little get out of jail card that he has. Look at it. I just
Hmm.
gave them some money so they could express their views. But if the purpose is to create anarchy and riots and things like that, if they do this to cause violence, then isn't that sedition? Shouldn't they
Hmm.
shouldn't they be arrested for planting that seed? But they get away with it, and I think that goes to the power of these people, Bill. They are in a strata so above us financially that they live by different rules. I'm talking about the Bill Gates and the George Soros. And by the way, if Elon Musk wanted to be, he would be in that group in a heartbeat. He's richer than
Hmm.
all of them. You know,
The point is, you think, well, I'm going to get in that strata. You're never going to get in their strata. And the only way that you have close to get into their strata is by coming back and we make things here. We conceive ideas, we take it to fulfillment, and we make it. We own it. That's that. But we don't do that anymore. I remember back just before the turn of the millennium. Uh, the only way I could get a party castle is another buddy that made good money, Kevin. He worked for Motorola. He was a marketing guy, and I remember when Walmart, Sam Walton used to have. You remember the old Walton stores? Everything was made in America.
that was their hook.
That was their hook. And that wasn't that many years ago.
No, it wasn't.
Now, I remember, him going, hey, make sure none of my stuff gets, his truck and whatnot, his sports car, make sure everything's fine. Yeah, no problem. Give me the keys to the car. But either way, the point was,
They had signs all
he,
over the stores, Bill, on
yeah,
this.
made in
Made in America,
America.
made in the USA, made in America. Yep.
Remember the product Motorola?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Motorola, let's say that you got a two-way radio, whatever it was, all right? You could take that thing, drop it, pick it up, it worked fine. As a matter of fact, one of their demonstrations was you could take that, throw it on the floor, stomp on it, and break the case, but you could pick that thing up and turn it on, and it still worked. Now, when Walton's son came in there, no, 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 we got to manufacture in China. He had to go to China with an engineer, and of course, they had to sit there and take all the schematics to where they could make it. Now, you sneeze and your Motorola phone falls apart and it doesn't work, or not phone, but and
two-way
phones
radio,
too.
yeah.
Two-way radio. They're junk, and everything going over there is junk. But what also happened was it took a piece of America away. It took your job away, your pride, your dignity, you name it. You think you're doing well? You're not. You own nothing. And it's, getting the tariffs to work. You've got to support this. But I don't know that Trump can do it because I think that, a lot of people in America are stupid wusses. Prove me wrong.
Spoiled. They're spoiled because they've been.
Prove me wrong.
Well, my fear is that if we don't do it now,
you'll never get a chance.
It'll never get it. This is our last chance to fix our country, and Trump is not waiting around for permission.
That's right. Now look at this. You'll go, well, they can't. Lee Greenwood talking about certain things they can't take away. Can't take away our land. Oh, yeah, they can. As a matter of fact,
they're doing it.
We pretty much we've sold farmland to China.
Yes, exactly. A lot of it.
And let me ask you a question. So let's say China owns land the size of a city or half a state, all right, and industry goes there. Are they going to hire Americans?
Well, they to that point, there was a big company, Chinese company, moving into Michigan. Mm-hmm. And they were trying to sell it to the natives, and the problem was a lot of Chinese personnel were coming in to staff it.
So they're not going to hire Americans.
Well, they would hire some, if you're the loading dock or something, but the engineers and stuff like that, they were coming in from overseas. And
the guy at the bathroom to sit there and go, "Can I shine your shoes? Can I give you some cologne?" That's your job.
Yeah.
Welcome, America. That's the new America.
Well, fortunately, this town, they vetoed it. It did not happen. And it meant a lot of money. Senator Mark Wayne Mullen was on Fox News Sunday, and he talked about the tariffs. This guy I like him, Mark Wayne Mullen. I believe, I want to say he was either a Ranger or Special Forces guy. He's a tough guy. I know he was a martial artist. I think he was. That's what his story was. But tough guy. He was one of these guys who was trying to find out the truth after the assassination attempt on President Trump last summer. And he was on talking about the tariffs. Listen.
This isn't a trade war. This is balancing our economy with countries that have taken advantage of us. There's countries for decades that have got rich over the backs of the workers here in America. What's happened is we've lost manufacturing jobs because of our unfair trade deals that have left America, went to other countries, building their products and turning it back around and selling it to our economy. The countries need access to our economy because we're the largest and the greatest economy in the world. The problem is it's costing us manufacturing jobs. It is time for someone to stand up. And I applaud President Trump for having a backbone and being the first president to ever stand up and say, hold on a second. It's not about today's economy. It's about the future of America's economy going down the road. We know the trade deficits have spread. They've only got worse year after year after year. And at some point, someone had to do something about it, and President Trump is finally doing that.
And the reality is it has rattled the markets. It is affecting people's 401ks. Millions of Americans have those. It's not just the economic issue, though. One of your GOP colleagues is warning about the potential political impact. Here's Rand Paul.
Tariffs have also led to political decimation. When McKinley most famously put tariffs on in 1890, they lost 50% of their seats in the next election. When Hod Smuley put on their tariff in the early 1930s, we lost the House and the Senate for 60 years. So they're not only bad economically, they're bad politically.
Do you worry about that short term, some of these special elections and things going on now, but more broadly long term, midterms 2026, which generally are not good for the president in power?
Well, here's what you have. You have a president in the White House that's a business person, not a career politician. I would trust President Trump in his handling of the economy way before I would trust Senator Paul on this. The truth is we have to do something about it now. We know, Shannon, has cost us jobs year after year after year, and these countries have taken advantage of us. What the president is saying here is he's not wanting to start a trade war. He's simply wanting to even the playing field. Reciprocal tariffs isn't just about the tariffs, but it's also access to our economy. I say this all the time, but Japan charges us 0% tariffs on selling U.S. auto vehicles in Japan, but we can't sell them because the access to the economy is closed. So it's not just tariffs, it's also the rules that prevent us from being able to do business in their country like we allow them to do business in our country. And President Trump has been talking about this since literally the 80s, way before he was even considering running for president. And so he understands what's going on. And when are we going to fix it? If we're not going to fix it now, Shannon, when are we going to have the backbone in this country to fix it? And now is the time to do it. And I trust President Trump and his leadership in doing so.
So you've been a consistent critic of China, as has President Trump, and yet we know that there is a fallout from what is going on with the tariffs. The Wall Street Journal reports that they're actually benefiting Xi Jinping. Here's what they write. Mr. Trump has taken an axe to the economic cords that were binding the rest of the world into an economic and strategic bloc to rival Beijing, and at precisely the moment many countries were finally starting to evaluate their economic relationships with China. China's already announced some retaliation, limits on their export of rare earth minerals that we don't have in abundance. We use them in defense. We use them in MRI machines. What is the off-ramp now with something like China, where we are a major trading partner and we need each other's goods?
Well, we actually do have rare earth minerals here in the United States. The problem is because of the environmental movement that we have, we can't mine them. As far as access to economy, China has to have access to our economy. Over 40% of the goods that are manufactured in China are sold here inside the United States. We have a huge trade deficit. We don't have to have access to China's economy to keep our economy moving. The reason why the Belt and Road Initiative exists is because just a few years ago, 75% of the manufacturing goods in China was sold inside the United States. What China's trying to do is diversify themselves by forcing other countries with the Belt and Road Initiative to do business with them by getting them in debt and forcing them to trade with them. The Belt and Road Initiative is a very big problem we have around the world, and you see countries that are pushing back because of the pressure that China is putting on them once they get them in debt. So you have two different things colliding here. What we're trying to do, and what the Republicans are trying to do, working with President Trump, is balance the unfair trade indifference that is going on, and the countries are taking advantage of us. And this, as I said before, Shannon, this is the perfect opportunity to do it because we have a business person that understands the market like we've never had before in the White House, and that's President Trump.
Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, I said he was special forces or special ops.
Yeah.
He wasn't. He was into mixed martial arts. He actually fought, I think, 3 matches and won all 3. He was pretty good at it, but then he got into politics. He's a tough guy, though, and he was one of these guys. He's not satisfied with what happened in Butler. To this day, he talks about it. And now you hear him talking about tariffs. And what he said is so true, Bill. We actually, they need us more than we need them. Our market is a rich market. They need to be able to sell their products here.
Right. We're giving it away. And once we give it all away, they don't need us anymore. Owning those tariffs, or owning manufacturing is like a big straw. You get to suck the money out of somebody else's pocket, and instead of them sucking it out of ours, we're going to give away everything. You know what? And you're talking about how the stocks are crashing. Investment rule number 101. If you want to make money right now, you watch the stock tumble down because some sucker just sold their good stock that you can buy cheap. And now, when everything calms down and turns around, you're going to be sitting on pure gold. So you lefties, go ahead and sell your
Now's the
stock.
time.
Get rid of it.
Now's the time to buy. Buy cheap now. It's a buyer's
buy cheap
market.
Now, and you always hold on no matter what. But, these loosey lefties out there going, so you know what? While they're doing that, say, that's okay. I'm here to save your day. I'll buy your worthless stock.
This is a national security problem we're in right now. You people may say, what are you talking about? Listen, if we don't make stuff if we forget how to make stuff, if we lose our ability to make stuff, then that's a national security problem. If we have to rely on China for parts to our weapons, well, what does that mean? That means
we have no military.
If we go to war with China, we are screwed. All they have to do is cut us off. As a matter of fact, right now, Bill, you heard him say just a little while ago, with these rare earth, as a penalty to us for these tariffs, they're going to cut back on the rare earth coming into our country. They're squeezing us.
We have more rare earth than they do. We have regulations that have been put up by the left. Look, we've been under attack for a long time. This has been known, and this is what they're doing. We're going to have to sit there and get back into the manufacturing mode. Everything, dare I say, everything that we, take advantage of now, all the creature comforts, all the inventions of the world, I would say, a preponderance has come from the United States. We are a creative, industrial society. We invent things, we make things. That's who we are. That's what we are.
Well, we still invent them. We just have them manufactured overseas.
You can't do that.
No, you can't do that. What's interesting is over the weekend at these rallies. By the way, folks, if let's say hypothetically, let's give the benefit of the doubt to the media. Let's say there were tens of thousands of people in these cities: Atlanta, Boston, Washington, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, wherever they were, right? Let's say there were 20 cities with 10,000 apiece. That's what? That's a lot of people. All right, let's just say that. Well, the big protest was last November when 77 million people stood up and said not anymore. And they did it in the ballot box. So when you see these pictures on television of these defiant people, like, for example, this lady here, listen very carefully to what she has to say.
My name is Grace Martinez Rosas. I am an immigrant. I am undocumented, unafraid, queer, and unashamed.
One more time for this lady, all right?
My name is Grace Martinez Rosas. I am an immigrant. I am undocumented, unafraid, queer, and unashamed.
Yeah, so she's undocumented, queer, and unashamed. This is, by the way, one of the people who works with Homan put a meme out over the weekend, and the meme was, it showed, I forgot who it was. Somebody was checking something. I think it was William Shatner. Captain Kirk was checking something off on a pad. Like, okay, got it. So I would expect that she'll be visited in the not-too-distant future by somebody who will be escorting her across the border. But this is the thing. There are a lot of people in those crowds, by the way, I guarantee you, who were undocumented. A lot of people who were strangers in this country who felt that they were safe in numbers and they could go out and let their presence be felt. These may not all be Americans out there who are protesting. A lot of these people may be strangers.
Yeah. Undocumented, but they probably got Medicaid and they got a ID to vote.
Yep.
And that's the whole thing. That's what they're really here. You know what? That you're unashamed and you're queer. That's your own thing. That is your own thing.
But for her to think that she has
undocumented and all.
Yeah, but for her to think she has the right and the freedom to get up there in front of thousands of people and shove it in our face. I'm here. And you can't do anything about it, is essentially what she was saying. I'm unafraid. Well, God bless you, lady. You should be, because you're going to be escorted soon, I'm sure, from the premises.
No, they need to be escorted from the premises because they're not here the right way. But there are so many, and there have been so many holes in our border system. Trump has put a stop to it. And this has been a crisis for years. Joe Biden just blew open the gates.
Oh, the man committed a crime, and nobody talks about it. Nobody talks about it. The man allowed an invasion of our country to happen and to go unchecked, and nobody is saying that he deserves to be, penalized for it in some fashion. Dare I say, imprisoned. It was a criminal act.
That lady talking reminds me, and it's kind of a little bit of an excursion, but it's not. In California, they've got a new thing that went into effect there.
Yeah,
it's a new camera system that watches everybody, and basically what it is, Jim goes driving down the road, good, honest citizen that he is, and the speed limit's 55, and he's doing 56. He gets a ticket. It's going to be $100. But if you are, let's say, somebody that is
visiting.
Poor, well, the visiting too.
Yes.
Yeah, somebody undocumented, somebody that is considered really poor. Your fine's only $50. Oh, you're on the government welfare and stuff like that. That's $25. We might even let it go.
So you actually are. It's beneficial to you to be poor in California.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
and if that doesn't tell you something about the Democrat Party, then you're lost.
Folks, this is why a lot of former Democrats left the party, including yours truly, because the party has changed radically in the past 50 years. I mean, it started. I really do think it actually kind of started in the 70s. By the way, Bill, someone was pointing out a lot of people in these crowds were older people, like in their 60s and 70s over the weekend. And I couldn't help but think these were the same hippie wackos who used to demonstrate back in the 70s, who, had nothing to do and thought they could change the world.
They were bums then and they're bums now is what you're trying to say?
Kind of, yeah.
Leeches on society? Okay.
Yeah. By the way, CNN, it's amazing. The guy who does the stats there, he's very enthusiastic and kind of impartial. He's not really one side or the other. He plays it down the middle. Harry Enton, I think is his name. He was explaining why. Now, consider again that they had the demonstrations over the weekend, and they were largely Democrats. They were all Democrats or communists. And so this is Harry Enton over the weekend talking about where the Democrats sit nationally.
Spare all I have to say, Democrats, call your office. We're March Madness times. Terrible, 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 to quote the great Charles Barkley. View Democratic Party favorably. CNN SRS, look at this, 29%. NBC News, you want to go lower than that? How about 27%? Both are record lows. The lowest going back to 1992 in CNN polling. The lowest going back on record to 1990 in NBC News polling. The majority of Americans hold an unfavorable or negative view of the Democratic Party at this point. All I can say is I'm a big fan of the oldies, so I'm going to quote Chubby Checker. How low can you go?
Nice. Well done. With that, what about congressional Democrats specifically?
Yeah, what about congressional Democrats specifically? You think these numbers are low. How about this one? Holy Toledo. Voters' views of the Democrats in Congress among all voters disapprove, 68%. And look at the approved number, just 21%, even lower than the Democratic Party at large. This is the lowest on record for Democrats, according to Quinnipiac University polling. You think these numbers are bad? Let's go to this side of the screen. We'll look how Democratic voters feel. Get this. The plurality of Democratic voters disapprove of Democrats in Congress at 49%, and just 40% approve. Horrible, horrible, horrible. Oh, my goodness gracious, you just can't get worse than these numbers.
And this is the number right here really driving all of this. As Democratic voters have turned on Democrats in Congress and the Democratic Party. That's what puts the numbers at historic lows. What is it they want to be seeing, these voters?
What is going on? I'll tell you what's going on. They don't like what's coming out of some of those Senate Democrats like Chuck Schumer, because take a look at the direction of the party. Democratic voters on Democrats in Congress doing too little to oppose Donald Trump. Look at this, 77%. should stay principled, even if it means nothing gets done in Washington, D.C. 65%. And this 65% is such a difference from where we were in 2017 at this point, when just 33% of Democrats say they should stay principled, compared to 59% who said they want to compromise. Democrats do not want compromise at this point. They want a fighter. They want to go into the ring like Muhammad Ali did against Sonny Liston. They want to take down the Republicans. They do not want this compromise anymore. They want to be more like Republicans, can get up to that stage and fight. And right now they feel like their leaders in Congress are simply put not doing so. And that is why their approval rating for congressional Democrats is at an all-time low, even among Democrats with more disapproving than approving.
Yeah, it seems that these Senate Democrats, some of them are banking on the idea that there is still a political middle, as it were. We will see. We will see.
But we will see if there's a political middle. But at this point, count me skeptical that that is at least what the Democratic base wants at this point. It's going to be very interesting, John, to see moving forward whether or not there are any repercussions come 2026, because I bet there may be some coming.
Wow, that's CNN of all people talking about where the Democrats are right now. It's interesting. The Democrats don't even approve of what the Democrats are doing. Now, he said that some of them think they're not being strong enough. At the end, you heard him say some of the Democrats think they should be fight, but they haven't got issues to fight for. And
that's their problem.
That's exactly that. They don't know what they're doing. If they fight for what Kamala was standing for, it's the same outcome is going to happen. It'll be like another terrible loss.
Well, this is not a football game. This is America and our values. If Trump's got it right, and the Democrats go, oh, we don't have anything to run on, then run with us. And when you have an issue, maybe we'll run with you. Maybe that's what America's about.
Let me give you an idea, though. MSNBC has a guy, he's a black guy named Elie Mystal. I don't know if you've seen him or not, but he's a little chubby, and he has a gray afro. And the guy's a communist, okay? I'm sorry. Every time I see him, he spews communism, not just socialism, not just what the Democrat platform stands for. The guy sounds like a communist. Listen to what he says about old white guys.
One of the laws you write about is playing out right now, the Immigration and Nationality Act. Now, this administration is using this statute to justify the detentions and possible deportations, actually, of Visa and Green Card holders who they seem to deem a threat to U.S. foreign policy. What do you make of the administration's use of the act? And more broadly, is Trump really setting up a First Amendment showdown, which is what Whoopi's been talking about?
Yes, absolutely. One of my premises for the book is that every law passed before the 1965 Voting Rights Act should be presumptively unconstitutional, right? But because before the 1965 Voting Rights Act, we were functionally an apartheid country. Not everybody who lived here could vote here. So why should I give about some law that some old white man passed in the 1920s?
Unbelievable. That's Elie Mystal. Understand something. First of all, the guy's he's way off base. Laws like what? The Constitution? Bunch of old white guys got together and put that together. Should you ignore the Constitution? You want to go way back? You want to ignore the Ten Commandments? If it wasn't anything he says pre-1965 should be ignored, should be unconstitutional. That's a lot of garbage, folks. But this is their thinking. This is a lot of people in these crowds over the weekend. They would applaud his stupid comments. This is Bill. I have a question. Where does this go? Where is this taking us? There is the media. The media is like flies to a flame. They're drawn to it. When they see these crowds get together, they make them out to be bigger than they actually are, more important than they actually are. They love it. They give it a lot of attention. Is this fuel going to stoke this fire and make it so that we're headed towards a time that we've never seen? Civil War? I hope to God that's not the case, but is that where we're going?
It probably is. I mean, life's a pendulum. You know what he's talking about. You know, you'd go, well, it was this way pre-1965. Forget about it. Okay. So are we going to be sitting here going, when were the Democrats really doing what they did? 2020? You know, so we're going to go, anything post 2020, we got to ignore too, because we're going really way woke left, and everything, the pendulum is swinging instead of balancing, which was, I think, where we were basically headed. He's taking racism going the other way. We're sitting here. We're getting to. They want to keep America divided. They want to keep the population of the world divided. If we're divided, they can control.
When President Trump was campaigning, he said that if they did what they did in 2020 in his second term, he wasn't going to allow it. Well, I'm afraid that's where they're going. We're headed into the summer, a long, hot summer. Are we headed towards more burning cities? And if that's the case, will President Trump allow it to happen? Or will he step in? Now, there's all these things that they talk about, what is it, posse comitatus. You can't have the military go in and squelch a civil riot. There has got to be an answer. We can't allow the cities to burn like they did before. It can't happen. We cannot function. And by the way, if we have a civil war, I don't know how the left thinks they have the people or the numbers to make it work for them. I mean, they may go to a crowd and see a lot of people, but when you talk about the 77 million on the other side of the ledger, you got to think there's a lot more people who believe that what Trump is doing is right than those demonstrators we saw over the weekend.
I think what they're betting on, they've got enough people radicalized. Just because we had 77 million people go to the polls and say, this is what we want, you've got to be willing to back that up with some muscle if the time comes and is needed. And I'm not saying go out and take your pitchforks and let's go to war. But, if they sit there and bring it on at some point in time, you got to answer that call. And if we're just going to go hide, then they win.
Well, I think if there were a situation like some kind of civil disobedience from the left, violent civil disobedience, I would think the military would have to come in. It would be an insurrection.
Yeah, I would think they would. But, you got liberal judges out there that are, calling shots that they shouldn't call. And that's a whole different topic right there.
Well, if we ever had a civil war, I would think that a lot of those judges will be put on the back burner. We will be in a.
You would hope.
We will be in a martial law situation.
Mm-hmm.
Totally different jurisdiction.
Now, how does that play in the world? We go at civil war. Right now, the nations of the world, they're all looking at us over this tariff thing. And they see that because of how the news is working here and the people are reacting, we're weak. It's not Trump that's
But wait
weak.
a second. We're not alone. Let's look, for example, at France.
Mm-hmm.
You know what they did in France? Marine Le Pen, who was the
Yeah.
big conservative candidate and was on the verge of being the next president of France. I'm talking, her popularity has never been stronger. They trumped up some charges against her, and they arrested her. So now they've told her she can't be a presidential candidate for at least 5 years. This is the kind of corruption. When you think it's just happening here, you got to step back and look around the globe. These globalists that you were talking about at the beginning of the show, they're reaching into not just our country, but Brazil, Venezuela, France, Germany. Look at Germany. Germany's all screwed up right now.
Those countries are easier to, split apart. We're the kingpin. And if we let them get away with it, they've got it all under control. And, they're very thorough in how they're doing it. They're doing it with the races. They're doing it over, economic status. They're doing it in sports. There was a lady that was, into fencing, and she was out at a tournament. It was not one that would get her into the Olympics, but the person that came up, to challenge her was a transgender male. And she took a knee and said, I'm forfeiting this. And they came up and said, well, you forfeit this, then you're out of the, She goes, yeah, I know, but I'm standing up for what I believe. I'm not going to take on a man in a woman's tournament. Now, she can only compete as a woman because she is heterosexual. That's how she goes. He can compete as a woman, compete as a man, compete as a transgender.
There's no advantage for a woman to compete with the men in a men's tournament, but there's a huge advantage for guys who are mediocre in their sport to challenge women.
Yeah,
physically.
well, look at UK. The UK Women's Pool Championship is so woke. There are now there are no women in the finals. It's all men in a women's pool tournament. Ladies, you have been fighting for equal rights for years. Let me tell you right now, it's a man's world. We own it all because we can be transgender, we can be straight, we can be men.
And where
it's
the
a man's
hell?
world.
Where the hell is now? Where the hell is when I was a young man, whenever there was an issue, the National Organization of Women would be right there with their signs protesting.
Well, let me ask you a question. If you're a man and declare that you are transgender and a woman, should you not be allowed into now?
Good point. Very
Just
good point.
asking you.
I know.
It's a man's world, ladies.
Well,
Do something about it.
You have judges who would actually go along with it. They would go along with the transgenders.
Mm-hmm.
You have a corrupt judiciary right now. And when, by the way, folks, when I hear people say, "Well, Trump is bringing it to the Supreme Court," think about this for a second. The executive branch is voted in by people.
Mm-hmm.
The legislative branch, all those members of the Senate and the House, all of them are voted in by the people. The judicial branch, not so much. They're all appointed, they're all put in place, but they act like they are the final arbiter, the godlike arbiter, never to be questioned. Think about it for a second. You can question the House of Representatives. You can damn well question the executive branch, but you can't question the rulings from the Supreme Court. These guys, they got all the friggin' answers, right?
So why do we need a president?
So right now, if you are holding your breath saying, well, these district judges, they'll get their comeuppance when they go in front of the Supreme Court. Nah. You have Chief Justice Roberts going to dinner and lunch with this guy Boasberg. They're buddies. You think he's going to rule against Boasberg? Come on. Nah, folks, we've got a screwed up system right now. Now, mind you, I believe that it can be repaired. I believe that there can be changes made that make it more fair. I think that's where Congress comes into play, and some honest people in Congress could probably put together some rules that put some boundaries on the Supreme Court. I mean, there's got to be some kind of boundary, or the Supreme Court becomes this godlike organization that has no rules or regulations. They just make them up as they go. You know, how many laws have you seen? For example, during the Obamacare, right? It was proven that Obamacare was a tax, and they weren't allowed to create a tax. Everybody said when it gets to the Supreme Court, they'll rule against it because it's a tax, and you couldn't issue a tax. You were taxing people. They were required to pay for Obamacare. That's a tax, right? Got to the Supreme Court, and John Roberts said, nah, I think it's not a tax. And it was basically that simple. It was basically that relaxed. I don't see it as a tax. And Obamacare passed because of John Roberts.
I hear the left talking about the high cost of medicine. It's all Trump's fault. Well, actually, no. We knew that medicines were going to be high this year. And the reason that we knew it is back in the fall, Obamacare came to fruition, and it got to the point to where all of a sudden, you're going to pay. I have one medication, all right, that thank God I don't need it anymore. And it went from its $20 copay to $678. And it had nothing to do with Trump. It had to do with Obamacare and coming to fruition. So, folks, quit you're trying to blame everything, and they'll go, well, okay, well, we'll get that bastard out of there. We'll put a Democrat in there, a nice lefty Democrat.
Oh, my God.
We'll always blame Trump. They'll always blame Trump. They want to sit there and just make him the coat hanger of all their garbage.
Bill, and to these leftists out there who are yelling for the removal of Trump, I heard them say over the weekend at one of the rallies that as soon as they get back the government in the midterms, which I don't think is going to happen because you heard how what the country thinks of the Democrats. I don't think they're going to win the midterms. But in the meantime, while they were up in front of their sycophant friends in these demonstrations, they were saying that as soon as they take over in the midterms, they're going to impeach President Trump and they're going to jail Elon Musk. I heard U.S. senators say that, like Angus King, an independent from Maine, who caucuses with the Democrats, which means he's really a Democrat. But the fact was, he was saying, we're going to impeach these people. They're already planning on 2 more years of disturbances, all right? They're already counting on being able to put Trump in jail again. You know? And by the way, Bill, I was going to point out that everything that Trump's doing right now is to repair the incredible 4 years of damage that was created by the Biden administration. He's not even doing the stuff that he wants to do. He's trying to fix the crap that Biden did during his 4 years.
Well, the Democrats have just changed hat racks. Everything that Biden did, they're hanging it on Trump now. And they'll say, well, he inherited it. It's his problem. But, since Trump has got in, he's gotten what? 175 lawsuits filed against him for no reason at all, but they filed these lawsuits because they just hate him so much.
You know how many Biden had in the same period in his administration?
How many?
3.
3.
Yeah.
Yet he's the one that screwed everyone over. Pam Bondi is right. That is the constitutional crisis. Now, is it going to be 175 a year, or is that we're just 2 months in? So is it going to be times 6? So 175 times 6 times 4? Is that how many you're going to file?
Oh yeah, I think
if this is not blatantly obvious to the people, then you know what?
And you're just seeing these Democrats, these judges. They're on a roll. They're emboldened because they realize, wait a second, I can stick my head up and stop the presidency just by snapping my fingers. Well, hell, I'm going to do it all throughout his presidency. They are going to do this forever.
Because we're letting them, and we're letting our little sycophant friends that we thought were friends.
Yeah.
I'm a Democrat. Are you putting up with this? No, I can't even believe I'm putting up with you. Delete, go to hell. Yeah. And that's exactly how I feel about him right now.
No, I know. There are people out there who, in all honesty, I don't understand how little attention they're really paying to what's going on. I've had friends, guys I've known for years, not politically, just, professionally. But there was a time, by the way, when I could sit down with these guys and we could have a difference of opinion and then go out for a beer.
But that's changed. They've been radicalized.
But now they've developed a hatred for anybody who thinks differently than they think. It's sad, and it's not healthy as a country. These people, and you wonder, will they ever wake up? Will they ever see? Forget the fact that, forget Trump's personality, all right? Take Trump out and put J.D. Vance in. Let's say hypothetically J.D. Vance is the president, but he has the same views. Do you think the left is going to be easier on J.D. Vance?
They're already attacking him. They're already warming up their dance to dance on him too.
They will make him out to be the next devil. This is how they work now on the left. There used to be politicians who had some decorum on the left, but they don't work that way anymore. Everybody is a friggin' radical.
Yeah. And it's funny because it's all staging, too. I was watching a CBS thing for their weekend or 60 Minutes or whatever it was, and the lady interviewer, and they're asking a gotcha question, and they're showing J.D. Vance there. They're cutting. I believe that she went in with these questions to give that stern look. Because I did see a lot of these interviews, and she got slapped back, but they didn't show that.
Yeah.
They were all promo pieces to show that they're getting to the bottom of stuff.
Scott,
they're getting to nothing.
Scott Jennings on CNN, he is, I don't know how he does that. I really do think his office has got to be in the basement next to the furnace, next to the broom closet, because he's the sole voice of reason on that network. And he was sitting at a roundtable discussion about tariffs and about President Trump, and he was having none of it from one of the leftists. It starts out with the leftist. Listen.
What the administration is doing, only 33% said because they like what the administration is doing. So if we want to just keep
Question, who's more popular right now, Donald Trump or congressional Democrats?
Doesn't matter. Donald Trump happens to be the president, doesn't he?
It doesn't. He's sitting at 50-50. You're sitting at 20-80.
He's at 48-50, actually, and increasingly people. You want to call the AP and tell them
they're call CBS News?
Sure.
Right. Okay. We're not going to go to that over
more importantly,
polls. We're not going to.
His numbers are going. His approval ratings are going down.
This happens a lot in the media. Okay, understand something. The people on the left many times will get out there and say with a great deal of certainty, they'll quote figures, and no one questions them. Well, Jennings just questioned her on camera, and she was like flummoxed. He said, "Are you going to question the figures from CBS News?" Oh, I cannot. Well, she was lost because they don't get fact checked. They are the fact checkers.
They make it up, and when somebody challenges them, well, they got to try to override. Now, when Trump was doing the debates, remember they used to turn his mic down, turn everybody else's mic up, because they want to control the narrative. Cut that crap out. Cut it out. Be real.
We have got to stand up as a people and say enough is enough. Now, I'm not calling. Look, I don't want that civil war that Bill and I talked about that the left seems to be pushing us to.
No, we're getting there.
I pray to God. Because it won't be the old farts like me, pardon my French. It'll be the young people who will have to pay the price of the stupidity of the older people, all right? And that's that's how wars are. I mean, how many wars are started by old people and fought by young people? And that's lousy. What should happen, by the way, is if an old person starts a war, he should be able to go out and fight it. They should make him go out and fight it. Even, you want to start this, fine. You're going to the front lines tomorrow.
Yeah. You're in the ring, buddy.
But anyway, I pray to God this is not the direction we're going in. But I hear about things that happen like this weekend, and I think this is the beginning of the summer. It's just getting warm. You know that they're going to have more of these demonstrations in cities all throughout the summer, and pretty soon there'll be buildings that'll be set on fire like there were in 2020, and there'll be all this corruption, and it'll be done in blue cities, by the way, where the mayors and the people who are charged with enforcing the law will step back. Will stay on the sidelines while all this garbage is happening, like what happened in Minneapolis. Heck, they even let their brand new police station burn to the ground. We can't interfere with that. Well, what the hell is wrong with you people? That's a brand new public police station built to for millions of dollars, and you just let it burn because of what reason? You don't want to get in the way? Isn't that your job to get in the way and to stop this nonsense?
Well, it used to be. Maybe what they ought to do is teach them a lesson. The insurance companies say, well, you know what? Your fault it burned down. You pay for it.
You know who was governor of Minnesota? Tim Walz.
Little Tim?
Yeah, Tampon Timmy. Yes, exactly. But these people are dangerous for civilization. They are. You may say Trump is dangerous. My question to you is how? He's kept us out of wars. He has kept our country out of wars. He's negotiating, dare I say, peace in the Middle East and in the Ukraine. By the way, do you know what that son of a gun Zelensky did? He's
doing everything he can to undermine peace.
This will be the 6th time. He signed an agreement of that rare earth deal with the U.S. He agreed to it. He signed it, and then he backed off. Then he backed away from the signed agreement. This will be the 6th time that he did that. He is not to be trusted or counted on. And this, by the way, is the guy our country is supporting. I mean, you signed a peace deal, you agree to something, you signed the document, it's done.
Well, we have a signed document, so as far as I'm concerned, the deal is done. We should start going in there. But, we've got to settle the war, because if not, and Russia's looking, even though they will bow to Trump, they might be sitting there going, well, maybe we don't, because maybe they got a weak political system over there with all these radical Democrats, and it's your fault if you sit there and give away our country and our freedom. Because if Russia goes against the Ukraine, then you're right. It's you've
heard of McGill University in Canada, probably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No one talked about this. It made no news at all. But I believe last week, and I could be wrong, but I believe last week the entire university was taken over by radical students in a protest, in a pro-Hamas Gaza protest. The entire university, McGill. This is not like the such and such hall, or they took over the whole school. You would have thought that our news coverage would have been wall to wall during the newscast of what's happening in a neighboring country like Canada. Not a damn word from anybody. Nothing. Mm-hmm. Zero. It was like crickets.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you: do you think America is still going to be in the history books? Well, it'll be in the history books, but you think we'll still be a nation in 50 years from now?
We're at a breaking point right now. We are and this is why we need somebody like Trump. Mm-hmm. We talked about the tariffs. If we don't change our system and start making stuff again, if we don't start acting like a fair dealer of goods and stuff, like we got to make our own stuff and we got to get paid for the stuff we make. There has to be a balancing act. You can't have a country charging us a 200% tariff like Canada did on some of the stuff they were making us. We would ship stuff into Canada. They'd charge us a 200% tariff. No big deal. But when we say we're doing a 25% tariff, how dare you do that?
Yeah. Well, we could end up manufacturing again when we fall as a nation, and then they come over and take over their newfound property, and we become their, 3 cent an hour labor force.
I think, Bill, what we don't realize is the size and strength, innate size and innate strength of our country. You and I were just one little tiny, cog. But the fact is, it's a big wheel, and it's a powerful wheel. So do I think it'll be here in 50 years? I got to think that, smarter, more level-headed minds will prevail in the long run. I think we've got to go through some massive governmental changes. And I'm not talking about we've got to get this communist movement out of the way, because it's a cancer in our country.
Well, it's infiltrated the left, and I think it's trying to take some foothold in probably the right too.
Well, there's a rhino who's trying to stop the tariffs. Rhino from Nebraska, who is trying to stop the tariffs from taking hold.
There are 9 rhinos that are in Senate rhinos in Montana, and they were censored. They're trying to stop that stuff too. And finally, the Republicans there sat there and said, you know what? You're censored. We don't recognize you anymore, because they were voting against everything.
Senator John Thune, who's I don't know. Sometimes he's a rhino, and sometimes he surprises you. Okay, but he's the Senate leader. But he's trying to get establishment Republicans. He's lobbying them to get President Trump to endorse John Cornyn, who is definitely a rhino and not to be trusted, over the MAGA favorite Ken Paxton, who is the, I believe, Attorney General of Texas. Right now, he's running for Senate. Paxton is a good man. He's the kind of guy that you can rely on in combat. He's been there in the trenches for Trump. He's been sued. They tried to impeach him in the Texas legislature. It didn't work.
Right.
He's a trusted ally of the president. But here's Thune trying to get Trump to endorse John Cornyn, who is definitely a rhino. You know, I mean, there's too much. The Republicans play too much politics. The Democrats walk in lockstep, which is scary, because if any group is more like the Nazis, it's the Democrats. I mean, they all sit down together, they all stand up together, they all march out of something together, they'll all wear the same stuff together. They have a unified presence in our government, and that's good if it were for the right stuff, but it most often is not for the right stuff, you know?
Yeah. Boasberg, he was caught. He was trying to bait a trap to, with Trump, so that he could take him down. But Andy Biggs, where is he from? Arizona, I think?
Andy Biggs, Arizona, right.
He filed a resolution to remove deep state judge James Boasberg without the 2/3 Senate vote, which I guess he can do. So that'll be interesting to see.
Apparently he said he failed to uphold the Constitution's good behavior clause. Without requiring, and that means that I guess if he can get this to go through, they can remove Boasberg without a vote from the Senate.
Yeah, get him out on conduct.
Yeah, which would be I don't know whether it's going to happen. We have too many unreliable people in our legislature, people that you think we could count on, and they don't always come to our side, our aid. Which means there's a lot of they have. You've probably heard the term cloakroom diplomacy. In the House of Representatives and in the Senate, they have cloakrooms, literally. They used to be the room that the senators and the representatives used to come in and hang their coats. The cloak room. You hang your cloak. But in that room, a lot of deals were done historically. So they still call that kind of diplomacy cloakroom diplomacy. And it's done off the stage. You deals are made behind the scenes that affect us all in the cloakroom.
Right. Yeah, and they're not deals that are always good for the nation. Let me ask you this: if they find a way, and I have a reason for saying it, we didn't talk about Don Bacon, did we?
No.
I don't remember. No.
But
let's say that they find a way to stop the tariffs,
right?
And just undo it. That makes Trump look bad. It makes and it makes us look like a bunch of wusses.
Right.
Apparently, Don Bacon. All right, now he's where is he from? Nebraska. He's a rhino from Nebraska. He's introducing a bill to, basically halt Trump's tariff agenda.
Yeah,
and he thinks he's going to get away with it.
Yeah, he's the guy in Nebraska. Can you believe that? Heartland kind of country, but they've got a rhino out there, an unreliable. I don't know.
Why would he want to stop it? Why?
Because there's money involved. This guy is probably being funded by somebody in big government. Look you're in Nebraska. You have a small constituency. Maybe you're in a solid red. No matter who is running for office, if they're Republican, they win in his seat. So he comes out and says, "So yeah, I'll vote against that. I'll vote against the tariffs." Yeah, sure, absolutely. If you put
what good is it? You know what? A person should be held by the measure of what they do that's good for the state, not for his pocketbook. How is that going to help the state getting rid of the tariffs?
Well, it goes to the idea that there are a lot of greedy SOBs in government who present a false image of themselves. Hey, I should point out, Bill. I looked at the clock on the wall. We gotta pause. It's one of those shows. We are on a roll today, but we should take a step back, and we should pour ourselves a cup of Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee. Bill has his in his hand right now. Oh. Don't you feel more relaxed already? You just had
You're talking about the Right Side Coffee.
Yes.
Oh yeah, it's great. You know when I'm down and blue, I just have a cup of Joe, Right Side Coffee Joe, and it's good stuff.
Yes.
And it picks me up, makes me feel good. I have energy. I think clearly. I think rightly.
The world could have dumped all over you today. I mean, you may have gotten out of bed and everything just dumped all over you, right? And you say to yourself, "Oh, I want to go back to bed. I don't." Have yourself a cup of Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee. and it clears everything away. Suddenly, it's fresh air again. Suddenly, you feel better. It's the perfect elixir for a bad day.
I love your analogies, Jim. I mean, the world dumping all over me. I'm taking a shower, you know.
Yeah, I know you are, but yes.
That's like walking behind an elephant with a
all
bucket
right,
and
we
a
don't
shovel.
Need,
You know?
Yes,
like,
we don't. I think we all got it. Listen, try yourself. Try a cup of Jim and Bill's Right Side Coffee. You're saying, well, I would if I knew where the heck you sold it. It's at rightsideshop.com. Rightsideshop.com. Just go there. Rightsideshop, all one word. .com. Bingo, you're right there. Or if you can, if that address doesn't work for you for some reason, go to itsanotherday.com, itsanotherday.com, and press the little button on the top of the screen that says Right Side Shop. It'll take you right there.
It's good stuff, and that elephant bucket shovel thing.
Yes.
That's the stuff we reserve for our Democrat friends.
Yeah, yes.
It's a whole different brew.
That's not. It's right side something or other. Anyway, listen.
No, it's left side stuff.
We have Juan, Jose, and the Border Crossers here, patiently waiting to sing their little 10 seconds. So
wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee.
Right Side Coffee. So, Bill, where do you think this week is going to take us? We got it's Monday. Do you see this being? By the way, you know there was another apparently another assassination attempt over the weekend. Not attempt, threat on President Trump. They arrested the guy. They almost it gets no publicity.
Yeah, are they going to let the guy go? What happened to the other the guy down in Florida?
We don't even know what the story was with the guy in Butler who actually pulled the trigger.
No, we don't. Why? They're sloughed away. These are like the Kennedy files. Whoop, they're gone.
Now they're saying that the Secret Service is going to cut their staff back by 20%. And everybody went, oh, my God. Well, maybe it's because we had Secret Service staffing Hunter Biden and his family. I mean, it got a little crazy. Maybe they're cutting back because we had a lot of agents and people who were protecting people that shouldn't have been protected.
But, not everybody's safe. Now Trump has been safe and lucky because they have made it very obvious they're going after him. And the sycophant left going, I wish they would have gotten him, but they've gone after him. But I'm not saying everybody that's got Secret Service protection is stealth. And that's the problem because, they cut that back. The left will take one of their own just to make a point.
Yeah, well,
I'm just saying. This week, I think, like today, the stocks, I expect them not to. I don't think they're going to be good numbers today, but I think if you give it a week or two, all of a sudden things are going to turn around.
Yeah,
but if they can keep the wheel of negativity turning, it may go the way that the left wants it to go, and if it goes that way, we're in trouble.
You mentioned something we both talked about earlier about the globalists, that strata of incredibly rich people. If they want to create an image of a depressed and crippled stock market, have they got the financial wherewithal to cripple it with their resources?
Well, I was just sitting here thinking in my mind, there may be two levels of wealth. There might be the Trump rich and the Elon Musk rich and the Bezos rich, where they're in the billions of dollars. But I'd always heard that there were really 20 money families of the world, and it wasn't so much the liquid assets that they had. It was the control and the power and the physical assets.
You're talking about like the Rothschilds and stuff like that.
You're right. And so, but how many of them are there and they control? And the Bill Gates and what, they're wannabes. They're under there because they have wealth and they're trying to suck up to that. And Bill Gates has acquired a lot of land, farmland and whatnot, but there's power when you own certain things and you control certain things. So I'm wondering if there's a different strata of wealth. I'm trying to say.
I'm just thinking though that you can, if you have this kind of money and this kind of resource available to you, if you decide, for example, to pull a large chunk of stocks out of a blue chip stock I mean, just for the sake of pulling it out.
Okay.
That can cripple it.
The Rothschilds. You know, who controls, what is it on Wall Street, where the Federal Reserve? Who controls that?
Well, they say it's a bunch of unseen families, Rockefellers, the Rothschilds. The Rothschilds are more European, but they do supposedly have a chunk of the control of the Fed.
Okay, where's their money come from? How is it generated?
It's printed in the U.S. Treasury, isn't it? It's printed.
And what backs it up?
Well, the interest rates that are adjusted by the Fed.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, that's a private bank. It's called the Fed, folks. And everyone says, oh, it has to be a federal. No. It's a private friggin' bank.
So we go to the Fed, we say, we need this money. Sure, we'll give you the money. They'll print the money. What do they have really to back it up? But just our promise that we'll pay it back with interest.
Bill, how can the world let a private bank like the Fed adjust the interest rates and have it do so much? I mean, why are we deferring to a private entity to essentially control our economy?
Well, that's my question. I mean, who are these people behind the curtain? What levers do they have? What power do they have? What do they really own? Or is it just the perception and illusion that gives them, the gravitas to have?
Oh, man, this is only Monday. Can you believe it? This is only Monday, but we'll be talking about this for the entire week. I don't know where this summer is going to go. I think we're going to have more disturbances. I don't know whether. I'm fed up with these kind of demonstrations.
Yeah,
and it's only April. I mean, to see. Listen, you have a problem with our government. It's called voting. And by the way, the people on the right had to wait. They thought there were a lot of improprieties in 2020, but because they were basically strong, solid citizens, they did the right thing and they waited the 4 years to vote again. That's the system. But the people on the left, they don't want to wait. If they can take you down with impeachment, even if it's an unjust impeachment, they'll do it.
They are a machine. It has nothing to do with the will of the people. They're a machine, and they're going to pull any lever or pull out anything out of their switchblade out of their pocket that they can to control and maintain and garner power. What happened in this election, like in 2016 with Trump, was an anomaly. He figured out how to break through their elections. I think we've had stacked and fake elections for a long time. He figured out how to get around it. He did it again, and they're looking at that. And trust me, I'm sitting, basically what I'm saying is what other people have said. These elections are all part of a game just to make us think that we've got something that we really don't. Trump is the only person that's pulled back the curtain and done something.
The other thing they tried to do to us over the weekend is they tried desperately to create a narrative where there was a rift between Peter Navarro, a Trump loyalist and an economist, and Elon Musk. And to a certain extent, it kind of looked like that there was one that was created, although Navarro came out and said, hey, there's nothing to see here. We have a difference of opinion. But Musk took offense. Musk got a little ticked off on his tweet, and you gotta think that there's something that what Trump has got to do, in my opinion, he's got to bring the crowd back into the office, sit everybody down, and get his.
So we can't fight amongst ourselves.
Yeah,
we can't fight.
Get his communication director to join the meeting and say, all right, we've got to have a common message, and we can't be divided. If we're divided, we fight amongst ourselves in the privacy of our conference room. We don't do it in the media.
By the way, don't use Signal to send out the messages.
I know. Hey, they're trying desperately they've tried to make it sound like it was a an issue, and I saw Trump.
No, it wasn't. It was
Trump
nothing.
was asked a question on Air Force One about Signal, and Trump said, "Oh, come on, that's a non-story. Let's move on to something else." And he's the guy who has to make the decision as to whether it's an issue or not, and he just said, forget about it,
Well, if you didn't hear, Mike Waltz, he said he actually accidentally, tripped that number, for somebody else. Why he had, Goldberg's number in his phone, who knows? Maybe it was planted there. I don't know. But, I've done that.
Apparently it was an aide. An aide got it into his phone. He sent him a text message. He said, "Put this in your contacts so you can contact him." It was supposedly an accident. And
I have sent texts to people. "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to send that." And you have too. Yep. And if you say, "Oh, no, I've never done that," you're a liar, a bold-faced liar. Prove me wrong.
Yep. Hey, listen, on that happy note, I think we should pull the plug on this show. Been a lot of fun, a lot of things to talk about. It's only going to get busier as the week progresses. I got a feeling it's going to be one of those weeks. If you like the show, tell your friends, spread the word, help us grow. Visit our gift shop, rightsideshop.com. If you don't want the coffee, you don't need the coffee, maybe you'll buy one of our hats or sweatshirts or cups or whatever. Bunch of different things in there. Part of the proceeds come to help us promote the show, which is important, helps to get the word out and to grow the show. And by the way, we thank you all for listening all around the world. We have listeners everywhere, Bill. We got listeners in England, Ireland. We've got listeners in Germany and France and Belgium, Ukraine. Can you believe we have listeners in Ukraine? You'd think they'd be busy fighting a war, but they're listening to our show, too. A lot of things, a lot of people all over the world, New Zealand, Australia, Japan. It's amazing where people have discovered our program, and we appreciate each and every one of you because it makes a difference, trust me. It makes a difference that you're there.
What about Lodi, California? We have anyone in Lodi?
No, nobody from Lodi. I'm sorry.
That's too bad.
They don't have radios out there. No.
Oh, they don't. Yeah, they don't. I drove through it once. They didn't even have a road. I had to sit there and
really.
Yeah,
how did you drive through it if they didn't have a road?
I had a paving truck that moved ahead of me and paved my own
you
path.
Built your own. Yes. Well, you got to do that sometimes when you're a pioneer. You have to find your own way.
Yeah, I think it's called the night highway. So
yes, you drive it at night. Anyway, listen, I'm done. It's a wrap. If there's anything you want to add, now's your time. Otherwise, you know what you can do.
I've been told what I can do several times, and every time somebody told me what I could do, I just sat there and said, "Hasta la vista, baby. We're out of here."
This is CRN America.